Well, hello, YouTube land. Welcome to my channel. The latest news on immigration today has been exciting. Hill reports that Senator Dick Durbin and Senator Lindsey Graham, a Democrat and a Republican, this is a well-known, loyal relationship that the two parties have forged on immigration, are going to introduce the DREAM Act again next week in the Senate. It's actually quite significant in the context of what else really is happening. I mean, when it comes to immigration reform, big things are happening. Now, President Biden did something that not a lot of presidents in the history of United States presidency has done before. That is take on immigration reform on day one, and through his executive orders make a lot of changes, undo a lot of things that the predecessor had done, send out a lot of statements, if you will, through his executive orders, like fortifying and protecting DACA was one of his executive orders that really didn't mean much. I'll get to it in a different video. But on day one, he did something more. What he did, or his administration did, is that Obama did not do, Bush of course did not do, and Trump, by God, did the other things. But what Biden did, President Biden did, is he released an immigration reform package, calling it the US Citizenship Act of 2021. Now, I have a little notes on that piece of legislation, piece of idea, piece of wish list, if you will. And what this package is, essentially it's a immigration reform wish list that comprises of 12 different pillars. 6 of them talk about granting citizenship and labor protection to people who don't have that, to more vulnerable population. The 3 pillars are about border control, and the other 3 pillars are causes of migration, dealing them head on. Now, of course, I'm gonna in this video talk about the first 6 pillars, which is the citizenship and labor protection, what they mean, what does it mean to the undocumented population, is it hopeful, is it not, what's gonna happen? Is it gonna be Good Morning America, or is it gonna be Night of the Living Dead? Right. Because to be honest with you, the 6 pillars that fall under the citizenship and labor protection section is what really drives the Democrats. Rest is kind of breadcrumbs that they are trying to give out to Republicans, that, hey, listen to us or else, and all of that or else, the threat piece of it, I'm going to cover it in a different video as well. So what are these 6 pillars essentially? What are they talking about? What is it? And how does it help you? So essentially, of course, the number one thing when it comes to our mind, immigration reform is granting citizenship, granting pathway to citizenship, which in most cases, if not all, goes through a green card. Essentially, what this package talks about is granting a pathway to citizenship for any undocumented immigrant, granted has not committed any crimes in this country, who came to the United States on or before January 1st, and guess this, of 2021, this year, will be put on a path towards citizenship. That path would look something like this. That path would look something like 5 years as a temporary legal status holder. Then you could apply for a green card after 5 years, and you meet certain requirements, as well as that you have been able to maintain a good moral character and things of that nature. And then once you get a green card, after 3 years, you'll be able to apply for citizenship. Now, the whole 3-year period between a green card and a citizenship, that will require changing the existing INA rule that states you need at least 5 years in most cases. So that's big news. Now, it is not going to pass. It's not going to happen. There are a few reasons. One, even to a libertarian like me, it just doesn't sound respectable for legal immigrants who have been waiting for ages and ages in line to get their green cards to say that, hey, if you came to this country last Christmas, overstayed your visa just last Christmas, we gonna get you a green card. Doesn't sound right at all, does it now? So that's not gonna happen at all. Now, what this really is, if you think about it, is extreme demands followed up by small, slow concessions. And that's what it is. It's essentially extreme demands. You go to the table asking for the world, and you might get a village, right? You go to the world, you say that I want this, I want that, I want immediate green cards for people living in Papua New Guinea, and they might give you green cards for some. But if you go to the table asking for what you think would be realistic or reasonable, you're not gonna get anything, essentially. So that's number one pillar. That's the big deal here. Now, what's really going to happen with this, right? Because this point is very important to talk about, because this is what is going to be the real point of contention between Republicans and Democrats. There are other pillars, the whole family reunification pillar that talks about removing per country visa caps. Again, this is a wrong approach by Democrats. Once again, the problem is not per country visa caps. The problem is the overall number of visas are limited to begin with, number one. Or second, there is no proper enforcement. And I don't want to, at the risk of sounding like a Republican, there is a lot of fraud in immigration. So we should have some better enforcement. So folks who are really, truly deserving of green cards are the ones who get green cards. That's a different story again. They want to eliminate 3 years and 10 years ban for people who've been undocumented in the country and once they leave. This is a good proposal to be included in any package because it's kind of harsh, I think if you are in this country longer than 180 days, which is, I'm not a genius, but it's about 6 months. If you're in this country for 6 months undocumented, you decide to self-deport, self-leave the country because you thought, this is the wrong thing to do, or you get caught and you're removed, you're banned to come back into this country, from coming back into this country for 10 years. So that's pretty harsh. Now, you could apply for waivers and whatnot, but that's a gully nobody wants to go in. So that's another part of the keeping families together section. Now, there's another section which is, of course, embracing diversity. Well, cut me a jib of that. Now, what this is essentially increasing the number of visas from 55,000 to 80,000 within the green card diversity lottery system. That is essentially people from Nepal, people from Burma, people from some of the African countries that are underrepresented, in the American immigration system, if you will. They are the ones who can enroll in this lottery. It's nothing but, as the word suggests, it is a lottery. They literally it's a raffle. You put your name, put your application, you have to do some formalities, but if your name gets picked, you're off to the United States. So they want to increase that lottery quota from 55 to 80,000 people a year. Then, of course, they have growing our economy, which is, of course, clearing backlogs, recapturing unused visas, eliminate per country visa caps, again, giving easy access to green cards for people with STEM degrees, and dependence of H-1B work permits, essentially preventing children from aging out. That's another good thing to look into. Essentially, there are a lot of cases where kids who come with their parents on H-1B visa, parents who have H-1B, the employment visa, they get to stay in this country as long as they are under 21. When they're 21, they're on their own, essentially. So they have a couple of options like transferring to an F1 student visa, whatnot, but it's kind of harsh to give them these kind of options for somebody who came to this country at 5 years age. And, green card line or the log or the backlog is so much, especially for Indians and Chinese people, that it takes them decades to get a green card. So these kids, quote unquote, age out, and that is what the problem is, and that should be addressed as well, I think. And they're trying to give authority to the Department of Homeland Security to adjust green cards. I didn't find much details on the adjustment of green cards, but if I think what it could mean, I think it might be just adjusting the number of green cards. Now nobody's gonna get them that either. Of course, then they're trying to protect workers from exploitation, which I like. Of course, I always say, if there is an undocumented worker who's trying to feed his or her family in this country, and you don't like the fact that they're working without papers in this country, first of all, stop using a lot of resources to find a person who might be picking fruits or who might be just stocking shelves in a grocery store. Go after the owner of the grocery store for employing undocumented people. Hit them hard. Put a clause in there that if we catch you the first time, you're gonna be fined for $50,000 per undocumented person we find on your premise. And if we find you doing this again, your business will be shut down. Make an example of that so nobody can hire an undocumented immigrant. Second, I think we should give undocumented immigrants a little bit break, give them some temporary status to work and see what goes on. Well, that is my rant that I can get into at some later point. Now, what's going to happen with this package? Absolutely nothing. Biden is not going to be able to get this through. As good his negotiation skills are, he's not going to be able to do that. He's not going to be able to push this through Congress. I mean, give me a break. I'm pretty libertarian, like I said, with immigration, but no Democrat, no Republican, I'm sorry, and quite a lot of Democrats are not going to actually agree. Democrats like Joe Manchin, Democrats like Kirsten Sinema of Arizona, they're not going to agree to this, that we're going to just hand out green cards or temporary legal status for anybody who came just a couple of months ago. So what's going to happen? This is what I call a negotiation tactic. This is what it is. I am telling the world, Biden is telling the world that immigration is a priority for me, number one. If you go by the latest news, they are more than willing to break the immigration package into smaller pieces and try to pass it that way, because they don't have the votes in Senate. Even though they hold the majority, if you count Kamala Harris, Vice President's tie-breaking vote, they still don't have the votes to technically pass the legislation in Senate. I'll get into that in a different video. That's a very different rant of filibuster and why it should be ended or why it should not be ended. We'll think about it. So this is what's going to happen. What's going to happen is next week, sane people like Dick Durbin and Lindsey Graham is not the same person. Lindsey Graham is just Lindsey Graham. They're going to go and introduce DREAM Act onto the Senate floor, because DREAM Act already enjoys widespread support. By widespread, I mean 6 to 7 Republicans probably are going to be already on board with the DREAM Act. They might add a couple of things here and there, border control and all of that, to make a couple of additional Republicans happier, but they're going to pass this. They're going to give green cards to bare minimum DACA recipients, which is a subset of a dreamer population. DACA recipients are those dreamers who came to this country before the age of 16 by June of 2007 or in that vicinity. So bare minimum, they have been in this country for a little over 13 years, which is fair enough for somebody to be considered for residency. They're going to be the first people to get some sort of a green card legalization passage. Maybe TPS, we don't know. But this is what's going to happen. Even with just the dreamer population, either the 1.8 million larger dreamer population, which includes people who came to this country as children, but maybe even after 2007, some folks who aged out, who were too old to be part of the DACA population, because DACA has a restriction. You cannot be older than 31 in 2012. There is a reason behind all this. It's a very stupid reason, just about everything else the government does, but that's what it is. It's going to be Dream Act, DACA, maybe TPS, some sort of a citizenship package for them, because Democrats know one thing. They need to win an immigration battle, no matter how big or small, but they need to hand out green cards. I know it sounds bad, but DACA recipients have a case of their own, but they need to hand out green cards to these people or some subset of people to be able to survive 2022 election. Otherwise, they're not going to survive. Right. So they need this. So next week, watch out for Dream Act, watch out for DACA, watch out for TPS. You're going to see a lot of movement.